Difference between abstract classes and interfaces. Interfaces defines a contract what a class should do, not how it should do, whereas abstract classes provides a common base functionality to be implemented by other classes. We cannot instantiate both abstract classes and interfaces. That means we cannot have a direct object created for these. Rather, we need to implement or extend abstract classes and interfaces by other classes to create an object. Methods are public and abstract by default in interfaces, whereas variables are public static final. In abstract classes, uh, it can contain constructors, abstract methods with no implementation, or concrete methods with full implementation. Talking about the inheritance support, interfaces supports multiple inheritance, whereas abstract classes support single inheritance only. Access modifiers in Java. Access modifiers defines visibility and accessibility scope in Java for classes, variables, methods, and constructors. So there are mainly four access modifiers in Java: private, default, protected, and public. Private content is accessible within the class and not outside the class. For default, content is accessible within the package of different classes. For protected, the content is accessible within the package and subclass of different package. And for public, the content is accessible anywhere within the program. Now talking about the applications of access modifier, it is used for encapsulation, security, and controlled access. Now one thing we need to remember here, the private and protected is not applicable for top domain classes or top level classes. We can only use default and public. What is constructor overloading in Java? Constructors are those methods which have same name as that of class and which is used for object initialization. Now constructors are of type parameterized, default, and copy. Constructor overloading is defining multiple constructors within the same class but with a different input parameters. Now those parameters can have different order or can have different data type or the number of parameters can vary. Now the sole purpose of constructor overloading is to provide flexible object initialization. Now how is it different from normal method overloading? Is that constructor cannot have return type but a normal method can have, and constructors are invoked only at the object initialization, whereas the normal method can be invoked. Difference between final, finally, and finalize. Final is a keyword, a non-access modifier which represents immutability. It can be used with variables, methods, classes, or objects. If used with variables, that variable value cannot be changed. If used with methods, those methods cannot get overridden in subclasses. If used with classes, that classes cannot get extended or inherited. Finally is a block that used with try catch method in exception handling. It always executes after try catch in exception handling. It is used for closing DB connection, releasing resources, or closing files. Yet there are some exceptions where finally block will not execute, such as JVM crash or system.exit. Then comes finalize. Finalize is a method of object class. It is deprecated since Java 9 version, and it's used by the garbage collector for garbage cleanup. What part of memory is cleaned in garbage collection? As we know, Java is written in two memory types, heap and stack, and GC only works in heap memory. GC does not manage the stack memory. Stack contains local variables, method calls, or method frames, and heap stores objects, arrays, and instance variables. Now, GC only removes the unreachable heap objects and reclaims the unused space. Heap is divided into three types: old generation, new generation, and metaspace. And GC only works in old generation and new generation space. The difference between JDK and JRE. JDK stands for Java Development Kit. It is used to develop Java applications. JDK contains JRE, Java compilers, debuggers, jar tools, security treaties, etc. Whereas JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment, it runs the actual Java applications using JVM. JRE contains JVM, the core libraries such as java.lang, java.util, java.io, etc. But it does not contain compiler. So JRE is nothing but the subset of JDK. The difference between method overloading and method overriding. Method overloading is a compile-time polymorphism where we define the same method but with a different input parameters. It can include different number of parameters or different order of parameter or different data type of parameter. It is called a static binding because the method call is decided at the compile time by the JVM, whereas method overriding is a runtime polymorphism where method is overridden in the child class. It is called as the dynamic binding because the method call is decided at the runtime by the JVM. Dynamic binding does not include private, static, or final methods because these methods are not inheritable and these belong to the class itself, not the object. Java stack versus heap memory. Stack and heap both are the part of JVM memory model. Stack stores local variables, references, and method calls. It is thread specific. That means each thread has its own private stack. Stack is automatically managed when method call ends. Stack is small in size, hence providing a faster speed. It throws stack overflow error when stack goes out of space. Generally happens due to infinite method calls. Whereas heap stores objects, instance variables. Heap memory is shared among all the threads and it is managed by the garbage collector. Heap has a large size as compared to stack, hence providing a slower speed. Heap throws out of memory error if it goes out of space. Static keyword in Java. Static can be used with variables, methods, or classes. Members belongs to the class itself, not the instance if you use static with them. Static variables, only one copy exists for all the objects and it is shared by all the objects. That means if we change or modify it, that will be changed for all the objects. Now, for methods, we can use static methods without explicitly creating an object with the class name. So, for calling static methods, we can directly use class name dot method name. Now, one thing we need to remember here, it cannot use this super or non-static variables directly. And static methods are non-polymorphic, so that static method call is already decided at the compile time, not at the runtime. Now, for the static classes, we cannot use it with the top level classes or the outer classes. We can only use it with the nested classes or inner classes. Now, what is the use of the static? Now, why do we need it? For memory optimizations, share data like counters to be shared by all the other object references, utility methods such as math, corrections, etc. And most importantly, the entry point of program. And as we know, main is a static method. Super keyword in Java. Super refers to the immediate parent class object. It helps resolve ambiguity and proper constructor chaining. Super can access variables, methods, constructors of immediate parent class. If you want to access variables or methods, we can directly write super.variable name or super.method name. Now, if you want to call the parent class constructor, we can directly use super, but it must be the first statement in constructor. Otherwise, it will throw compilation error. And super is optional if the parent class have default constructor. Otherwise, you must write super explicitly. Now, one more thing we need to remember here, super cannot be used to access static or private members of parent class because it belongs to the class itself, not the object. And as we know, super refers to the parent class object. And also we must remember this and super cannot be used simultaneously. System.out.println in Java. Now this may look like a normal print statement in Java, but there is a mechanism behind it. System is a class in package java.lang.system. Out is an object of type printstream and it has public static final printstream, whereas println is a method of class java.io.printstream. Looking about the mechanism, first of all, JVM loads the system class and accesses a static variable out. Then it calls a println method on a printstream object and printstream writes the byte to the standard output, typically a console or log file, and then appends a new line. Now, two things we need to remember here. Print is an overloader method. That means it can have different inputs like string, char, int, etc. And print have three different variations: print, println, and printf. Print state prints a normal print, whereas println prints with a new line, and printf prints with a formatted printing. Why Java is platform independent? A Java code does not run on OS directly. Rather, it runs on an intermediate layer called a JVM. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machines, which executes Java bytecode by translating it in a native machine code. Platform-independent languages such as C, C++ generates OS-specific binaries, whereas we talked about Java, they run on VMs, and that VM then again converts that code into machine-dependable code. That's why Java is platform independent. Compile once, run anywhere.